I participated in the Mini Jam 187. I didn't want to use Godot, so I landed on Bevy. Bevy stands out for two reasons. Number one, it's based on the Rust programming language. And number two, it's the entity component system. I'll probably make a whole video on this later. Listen, let's get to the game jam. Yeah, half of the first day got corrupted. Let's move on to the second half. Yeah, so I tried to use Avian 2D instead of Rapier, but it turns out Avian 2D doesn't compile to WebAssembly. Or maybe it does, but according to my research it doesn't. I tried to make my own physics engine, which my monkey brain didn't consider. I have 2 days to get this finished. I got pretty close at some point to something that kind of works, but this happened a lot. Am I jumping or am I gliding? Let's move on. The concept here is you got 2 modes. You've got fire mode, which makes you run fast, and you got ice mode, which makes you slow but slide. There's one thing I do like about this game, it's this. I do think switching states is kind of satisfying. There has to be some kind of urgency in the game. It will automatically switch modes if you don't do it, but of course it was broken the first time. I'm quite happy with how this turned out. I mean, it changes a bit later, but for now this looks fine. It looks good. Now we have some form of map creation. I had 2 options. I could use software like Tiled, or I could just hard code my tiles. And you can guess which one I went for. If I spent a few days on the physics engine, I actually think it's something I could have used in the future, but this is where I decided to use Rapier, and you already know where this is going. Yeah, it doesn't go any more up from here, it just flop on flop. It does eventually work, but at this point I don't know why, but you die if you don't switch states, which I think is a bit over the top. The movement at this point was really free. You could kind of just do what you want, which if the game was different, I actually think this can work to my advantage, but for this game, absolutely not. At this point, I decided to make the player a ball. I also made the movement... No, I didn't. I didn't make the movement restricting, never mind. But now you can't spam state switches at least. Okay, now I restricted jumping, and I have something that resembles the beginning of a map. This was actually meant to be a tag game where you play tag with the other orb, but I decided I do want to play with level making, so I came to my senses. This is no longer an enemy, this is actually a foe now. This helps you do nothing yet. Here I was messing with states, so now the ice and the fire actually differ. I was messing with the other orb. I was thinking, how could I actually make him useful? And with enough playing around, I figured it out. And that's the very first objective completed. Now you can move on to phase 2. I added some help in the background, and here I was messing with sensors. Sensors do exactly what you think they do. They're just a fancy way of detecting collisions in Rapier. I go straight to making an arrow sprite, which when it hits the player, instant respawn, instant restart. I got it to work pretty quickly thanks to Bevy's querying, and yep, it sends you right back to the beginning. Took me a lot longer than it should have to learn how to use game states, but at some point I did. I really wanted to use the states in a more useful way when I came up with this. I don't think it was very useful, but it does prove that later on I can use the states in a really interesting way. When you develop a game, you test it so much that you understand exactly what should and shouldn't be possible. I knew eventually that this jump would be possible. It was time for a new mechanic. I decided to introduce bounce pads. I'm actually disappointed with how little I did with this concept, but I think it will be quite cool later on if I continue development. The thing that made me happy about this game was I actually had a good amount of fun trying to solve my own levels. I decided it was time for some polish. A super rushed main menu. I really wish I got more time to play with this, because now the orb that follows you is always the opposite state of what you are. Now the last phase, I'm going to leave it up to you lot. If you decide to play, figure out how to solve it yourself. I really enjoyed this jam, but next time I'll join a jam that's hosted for a longer period of time, and I'll scope down my project. Thank you for watching.